Now, recently I bought this XMAX and I've run it around a little bit. Not too intensely, not running it super hard. I mean, it's an XMAX, you're going to run it decently hard. But anyway, and unfortunately, the motor is broken. And I'm really upset about that because these motors are not cheap. About $250 for replacement from Traxxas. You can get a Chinese knockoff for I think 150. Or if you really want to go nuts, you could get a Castle Creation setup for this, probably for about 600, which is what I paid for the truck. So I want to fix it, and there's no videos online on how to do it, and I haven't found anybody who's had the same problem as me. So we're going to do it together. Now, basically, the issue is here that this armature, is actually separated from the shaft. You can see I can spin it. I can spin the whole shaft. And what was happening is that the shaft being connected to the gear and connected to the wheels eventually, wasn't spinning, but this was. And I can't find any kits for it, any replacement parts just for this, because this works. Amazingly, it does work. It would spin this, didn't spin it too long. It didn't take me long to figure out what was going on. Initially, I thought that this shaft had snapped in half. Basically, this was, basically broken here. But it's not, it's solid. It is simply that the armature has separated. So I'm going to try a couple things here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put super glue all down in here. There's already, this fiber has kind of gotten wrapped around there, and I'm actually going to leave that there. That will provide, well, fiber and reinforcement with the super glue. And I'm going to build that up, and then I'm going to put epoxy around it. Yes, I know this is not the right way to do it. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I'd rather try this, because this is literally like $5 versus $250, and it doesn't work it anymore. So let's give it a try. I'm going to carefully let the glue run down, let it soak in. And you kind of want to be careful with this because it actually, especially when it interacts with other fibers and just other things in general, this glue can get pretty hot. And yes, I have thought about how is it going to affect the balance and all that. So I haven't quite worked out that yet, but what I'm going to do is let this cure, and then I'm going to add more and let it cure and add more, and I'm going to do that a couple times. I'll film it, and then I'm going to put epoxy around the outside. We'll put this all back together and see if it holds. I mean, I'm going to try to untwist it, or basically try to break it before I put it back in, because these motors, for all their faults, are very powerful. Which is one of the reasons why they're so expensive. Okay, so a couple nights have passed, and I have put a lot more super glue on here to help reinforce it, but I want to add in some fibers, and I've built a camera stand. So now I can show you guys what I'm doing with two hands. So I'm just going to take these fibers that I took out of a paracord that I had lying around, and I'm just going to just try to wrap them in the best that I can. And this is just kind of creating a simple composite structure. It'll give something for that super glue to soak into, because what we're trying to do is take advantage of that maximum surface area that we have here. And at the end of the day, we don't know if this is going to work or not, but at least give it a good shot. beats spending 250 bucks. That's the other thing too. Is it probably will work. The question is how long. That's something that definitely I'm gonna find out here. So now we're gonna add the glue generously. Let that soak down. That looks really nice. And don't worry about these. This is gonna get sanded off. So once I'm all done with this, I'm going to put it in a lathe, and I'm going to sand over all of this, and we're going to try to get this part here as smooth as possible. And I might even try to do a little balancing of it, because I don't know what the RPM of this motor is, but it's probably pretty high, given that it is an in-runner. Put a little bit there. And yeah, I think that's a good amount. And now we'll let that dry. I know this video is going to be kind of awkward with the cuts and all of it in it. But all right, I think that's a good place to leave it off. Okay, so I have all the fibers kind of glued in the way that I want. It's kind of messy. Now I'm going to trim the fibers, which is actually really difficult because the magnets on this thing are pretty strong. I mean, obviously it's a motor, so it makes sense. I just want to, trim off what I can. No sense getting this all caught up in the lathe. So that's a bit better. I mean, it feels really good. So now we'll mount it in the lathe. Don't know if you can see it, but are removing material. Just a little bit. We'll check that out. So, not very pretty, obviously. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim these fibers off, and I'm going to put even more super glue in then. And then I'm going to put this back in the lathe and sand it again. All right, so we're back at the assembly bench. I'm going to install our armature rotor back into the motor. So I'm going to start with the caps. One obviously has a hole in it, the other doesn't. I now have to remember which side is which, and I believe it is, yeah, this side goes in here. There's this notch here. It fits in here. This is one of the problems when you have a project that drags out so long, you forget where everything goes. So I have my screws laid out here off camera. Now I have to give Traxxas some credit. They do use relatively standard screws. They don't seem to change their fasteners too much, which I do like. Back in there, and now it's the difficult part. Lots of magnets in here. There's a lot of forces that want to pull. Yeah, like literally that just ripped it out of my hand. So I'm going to set this on a little carton here. I'm going to carefully so much for that. All right, well, I think it's in there. I don't think done any damage. I'm kind of worried I don't want to nick up any of these wires. I don't want to damage anything. So now this goes, that hole down there is in line with this one. Right there. Slide and push that down. slide the heatsink down a little bit. That just kind of seems to move on its own. To get a replacement screw because one of these has decided to disappear. If you do have multiple Traxxas models, getting one of these little assortments that has like 1,000 extra screws really helps because you will lose them. It happens to the best of us. Alright, so now I'm just spinning it by hand and it feels the way it should. You know, you can turn a brushless motor, it kind of indexes to certain positions with the poles of the magnet. And I'm definitely feeling that. It feels good. How long will it last? That's anybody's guess, but that's why we're doing this. So I can't remember if this was turned. I have a feeling this was turned the other way. Yeah, this was turned like this. And then that goes through there. And then we have these big shoulder, I say big, kind of big, shoulder screws. Oh, look at that. That just appeared, so that was the missing one. Okay. All right, so this is the first maiden test after the motor repair. And I'm going to try to push it and see if hopefully it doesn't break. Well, so far not so good. Well, it seems to be working. Don't know how long it's going to keep working, but it's certainly better than spending $200 on the motor. Hopefully you found this helpful. Right as I crash into a tree.